Almost a 620 points of cut coming in on Bank Nifty, Nifty 52 at the day's highest point, and it's the sea of red across the screen, and especially the kind of movement that we are seeing in the broader markets, that's a bit concerning. On the flip side, it's the India VIX that is now inching higher with almost 8% uptick at what we are getting to see on the fear index. So exactly that is what is transpiring in very handful of counters that are seen to be lending support to the Nifty 50, case in point being L&T, ITC and even Tata Motors that are seen to be advancing. But on the flip side, yes, of course, Pharma and IT had that negative news flow. But along with that, some of these counters that were quite an outperformer of late, case in point being Eternal, M&M, they are languishing and being the biggest laggard on the Nifty 50 side. Add to that list is IndusInd Bank, Bajaj Finance, Tata Steel and even the whole metal pack is seen to be losing its shine. So all in all, not a great day coming in for the markets, and that's coming at a point wherein we are just 2 days away of the monthly expiry happening. So maybe a lot of these traders must also be adjusting their positions and rollover positions on the back of that. But Aisha, the breadth of the market too is not looking that great right now.
Well, yeah, and the breadth of the market, I mean, to be fair, has been languishing since yesterday. What you're seeing today is only a aggravated fall, but from the word go, and it's dismal right now as we close in for the week. It's a count of 202 standing to the reds, with just about 12 odd stocks standing to the green. So let me start over the green list, considering that's just very limited. It's only L&T, Tata Motors, ITC, Eicher and Maruti, along with Hero MotoCorp to some degree, which are just about latching onto the green. More meaningful, of course, a move coming in for L&T, or for that matter for Tata Motors, which has been so beaten down the past couple of sessions. A little bit of a dead cat bounce, if you will, playing out over there. Nuvama, AU Bank are some of the other handful of movers, but it's really a bloodbath across the broader end of the market. Look at an IndusInd Bank that's fallen 4% right now. M&M is down 4%. The entire IT pack, of course, has been languishing, led by Wipro right now. Infosys is down about almost 3%. Wipro itself is down about over 3%. TechM is headed in for a 3% decline, and TCS also lower by about 2.5%. Then also, there is that end of the market which has been doing really well and is seeing some profit taking. Look at an Eternal, it's down 3% right now. There is Bajaj Finance, which is down 2.5%. Trent, of course, has been languishing for the past entire week. Another 2% knocked off for Trent as well. It's now sitting below the 4,700 price point. Asian Paints continues to languish. Axis Bank is down. Bharti, ICICI Bank down 1.5%. Reliance, SBI, HDFC Bank, all of these stocks putting pressure on the markets right now. But Kunal is here. Let's chat about the market texture with him. Kunal, it's quite aggravated, the fall today.
Yeah, you mentioned the right word, Aisha, bloodbath.
Bloodbath,
So
yeah.
I think it's been quite some time that we've discussed this word,
Yeah.
but I think, today's, day is almost reminiscent of that. This September 2024, on a very similar kind of a note, we started off with, the markets being, into a corrective ways. I think we started off from 26,000 levels. I think in the last 6-7 days, the markets have corrected almost 700 to 800 points Nifty. And that too, I think, has happened on a more consecutive manner. The more damaging part, for the markets is the number of large cap names which are now falling below their 52-week, lows, large cap stocks falling below their 200 moving averages. And I think for the first time in the last 3 or 6 months, you're seeing the small cap index trading on the verge of a break below its 200 moving average. So I think that could be another trigger for the markets over the near term, because in the previous leg of the market correction, I'm talking of the September to Jan-Feb 2025 period, you didn't have the large cap, the mid cap and the small cap index falling below the longer term moving averages. But this time around, I think that in those indices could also be tested in terms of a breakdown. So yeah, weak market breadth across, and that indicates the kind of fragile sentiment the markets are going through right now.
Oh yeah, fragile it is. Let's welcome on board Deepak Shenoy as well and find out what he's making of the market. Deepak, Kunal says it's a bloodbath out there for a market which was just doing nothing. And the last 2 days at least, it's been a decisive move. What's leading to this weakness?
I think a lot of things, Aisha. I think one is, of course, the president Trump tweeting stuff, which is, I think, which obviously causes confusion and fear. But it's also about the things to come, right? So if you're saying we will do branded drugs, maybe you'll do generics tomorrow. If you do kitchen cabinets, then you'll do something else tomorrow. Things like that, I think, are the fear that happens. And in general, the weakness has persisted now a year or so in the Nifty itself, and now in the small caps and the mid caps. I think that fear is also showing. Um, some part of it is perhaps overdue, in the sense we've had a lot of bad news, but we have not fallen that much. So in that sense, I would say markets will kind of plan their reactions. But once we get to the next quarter results, which will be earlier in the mid of October, I think that's when we're going to see who's affected and who's not, and who's benefited from this fall in GST and so on. And that's when we can make more calculated bets. So in that sense, there's nothing driving up the market, lots of things driving down the market. So a 1% fall on the Nifty and 2% fall on the small caps is actually more of a relief that way, that it hasn't fallen a lot more.
But Deepak, you think also what's weighing in the market is this gush of IPOs. I mean, look at the number of IPOs that we've seen in just the last 2 months alone, and a lot of liquidity is, moving to the primary market as well.
Yes, so I was in a meeting where the SEBI whole-time member Anant Narayan said that there is a drastic supply shortage of new paper, in the sense that in the last year, we saw about 750,000 crores come into the equity markets, roughly 450,000 crores from mutual funds alone, and then perhaps 200, 300 from net buying from the other sources, including the FII exits of about 150,000 crores. You were talking of 750,000 crores net inflows into the market. Issuance by new IPOs and everything else put together was about 450,000 crores. So there was a shortage in that sense of 3 lakh crores of extra liquidity that's come in, largely domestic, investors into mutual funds and so on. So I think to that extent, IPOs are coming in and kind of bridging that gap. If there's India, there is an overvaluation that was partly attributed to not enough paper to buy. That differential will fall, and any valuation premiums that were because of lack of avenues to invest in, those will go away. But I think some of these companies also fundamentally have great long-term future ahead of them. So while they may fall in the short term, they will perhaps provide a base for for a better long-term story. So I don't think the IPO glut is going to cause a whole lot of long-term damage. I think maybe short-term is, and you're right. I mean, I can't figure out why markets have fallen on a short-term basis anyway. I'm just going to make a guess.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on where the markets are headed and what's happening. Let's just address the flashes on the bottom of the screen. We're talking about the Commerce Ministry statement that has just come in, wherein they're talking about the delegation that was led by the Commerce Ministry and Industries Ministry. They visited the US from the 22nd to 24th September, and they had meetings with the US ambassador. They had meetings with the trade representatives, and apart from the meetings on bilateral trade, the discussion was also held around US-based businesses and investors on promoting the trade investment between US and India. The delegation had constructive meetings with the government on various aspects of the deal, and both sides have exchanged possible views and possible contours of the deal, as was decided to continue the engagements with a view to achieve the early conclusion to mutually benefit. While we still await the finer details, and we'll be bringing my colleague Sumita on board very soon about what has been discussed in this meeting, and more importantly, if anything has been negotiated on the tariff front. We'll watch out for that. But right now, this is the view coming in, that engagements continue to achieve early conclusion of a mutually beneficial trade agreement. So while prima facie that sounds positive, we'll just get you more details on that on the other side of this very short break.
Bachat Utsav is going with the full fervor. Citizens to benefit from this Bachat Utsav. Traders have passed on the benefit. I hope and I wish strongly that the citizens of India will make use of this big drastic cut that the GST Council has given. It was a central government's proposal, but I repeat, the ministers sitting there from all states had come together to support this proposal, and today the people of India are deriving a benefit from it.
In association with SBI, best hai sabko pata hai.
Confused by the market noise? Benchmark your commodity trade with Big Mint's trusted price indexes. We know the pulse of the market. Real data, real markets. We are ISO audited. We have robust market methodology. Big Mint, trust the price. Trade with confidence.
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ, डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड में मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ, सेंचुरी क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
वैल्यू फंड्स, इसमें ऐसा क्या है?
सोचिए सुपरमार्केट नहीं
तो फिर
स्टॉक मार्केट है, और रैक्स पे अलग अलग स्टॉक्स हैं। म्यूचुअल फंड्स ऐसे स्टॉक सिलेक्ट करते हैं जिनकी आज की वैल्यू उनके पोटेंशियल से कम है।
यानी स्टॉक्स जो डिस्काउंट पे है।
इन्वेस्टमेंट्स के लिए वैल्यू फंड्स में ऐसे स्टॉक्स चुने जाते हैं जिनकी कीमत आज कम है पर फ्यूचर में बढ़ सकती है। म्यूचुअल फंड्स निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेज ध्यानपूर्वक पढ़ें।
Illicit trade is no longer hidden. It's in plain sight, draining billions, fueling crime and risking lives. From counterfeit goods to smuggled tobacco, Southeast Asia is ground zero. In India, 1 out of every 4 cigarettes is smuggled, making it the world's 4th largest illegal market. The cost, lost revenues, weakened economies and rising health risks. To explore this growing crisis, we bring you Combating Illicit Trade in Southeast Asia. Join us and witness leaders from government, business and global institutions come together united in the fight against illicit trade. Watch this special feature at these times only on ET Now.
भारत सरकार ने सभी देशवासियों के हित में हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस से जीएसटी पूरी तरह से हटाकर 0 कर दिया है। इससे हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस काफी सस्ता हो गया है। पॉलिसी बाजार पर अब 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू। PolicyBazaar.com.
Pace Digitech Limited now launches an initial public offer of equity shares of face value of 2 rupees each in the price band of 208 rupees to 219 rupees per equity share. Bid issue opens on September 26 and closes on September 30, 2025. For risk factors and other details, please refer to the red herring prospectus available on the websites of the SEBI, the stock exchanges, the book running lead manager and the company.
पता बदलेगा तो जिंदगी बदलेगी। जो सपना था अब वो सच्चा सारा होगा। घर अपना और उस पर नाम हमारा होगा। पता बदलने का ख्याल अपने साथ हमेशा जिंदगी बदलने की उम्मीद ले आता है। मैजिक ब्रिक्स, पता बदलो, लाइफ बदलो।
What is your message to an investor who's probably still sitting on the sidelines and trying to time the market or trying to time his entry?
You know, this behavior is going to be the most difficult one to change because everybody believes that they can sell at the top and buy at the bottom. The honest truth is it can never happen. So people, those who are still sitting on the sidelines, have to start today.
Correct.
And start regularly. It's not when can I start. If you believe that India is going to be the next big economy in the world, then you're missing out on the big picture.
Watch the episode at these times. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Looking for attractive savings options? LIC presents Nav Jeevan Shree's single premium plan. Deposit lump sum premium amount. Enjoy life insurance cover. Get guaranteed fixed amount on maturity. Liquidity options also available. Buy now. attractive rebates for existing policy holders. Terms and conditions apply.
पापा इससे पहले जो चलाई थी वही ले ले।
चलती बढ़िया है। कुछ कह रहे थे?
नहीं, इनकी सर्विस में डाउट था ना।
सर, ओवर 300 टच पॉइंट्स, 170 सेंसिटीज।
पर इन्हें सिर्फ 25 ही साल हुए हैं।
तुमसे तो ज्यादा ही है।
Skoda Fan Fest is live. Walk in today for a test drive and avail exciting benefits.
Skoda. The Wealth Company Mutual Fund का फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड जो मार्केट के अप्स एंड डाउन्स को नेविगेट करेगा, देगा पोटेंशियल फॉर बेटर ग्रोथ अपॉर्चुनिटीज। Hurry, the NFO subscription period is limited.
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
Back with closing trades right here on ET Now. While there's definitely panic about what Trump said overnight and the tariffs or fresh tariffs that he imposed on some other goods, there's also some resolution inside, it seems, and an Indian delegation visited the US on bilateral trade matters. The meeting was held from September 22nd to 24th. What were the key highlights? Everyone's curious to know. Sumita is here with the details. Sumita?
Absolutely, Aisha. In fact, the government of India has released a communication, and that communication essentially states that the delegation led by India's Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal travelled with the delegation from 22nd till the 24th, and of course they met with representatives from the US government, including USTR Jameson Grier, and also the ambassador designate to India, which is Sergio Gore. He is yet to assume office right here in India. We're given to understand from this communication that meetings went on a fruitful note. In fact, they were positive meetings, and in fact, it was understood, an understanding was arrived at between both the sides on fast-tracking these talks and fast-tracking these negotiations. In fact, the meetings were constructive. Various contours of the deal were held as well, and various engagements will continue in the future. Remember, this was the sixth round of talks that that were held between India and the United States, which was essentially initially supposed to happen on August 25th. They were postponed, and then we did see on September 16th the team from the United States come to India for preliminary talks, and after that, this was the sixth round of negotiations. We're also given to understand from this document that it was not just the meetings with the US government that the Indian government representatives held. They also had discussions with the business and industry leaders, and of course, the delegation held talks with the business leaders, and that evoked positive response from investors who reposed their confidence in the India growth story. Meanwhile, sources are also telling us that energy and India's energy trade with Russia could be an irritant, and that's a bit of a concern as far as the US side is concerned. How that gets resolved, that remains to be seen.
All right, thank you so much, Sumita, for getting us all those details. So a bit of a positive news flow coming in on that front. But taking a look at the markets, a mild recovery attempt is what the markets are trying to make. It's for Nifty 50 as well. We are now past that 24,650 mark, while Nifty Bank as well. At one point in time, the fall was over 600 points. So that too has recovered a bit. But Deepak, wanted to have your sense on which sectors you would advise our viewers to avoid right now, given the fact that the earnings projection, though in the second half we are expected to do better versus what we have done in the first half, but a lot of these factors will be at play with respect to the demand picking up, how the Q3 will pan out in terms of the valuation front. Any particular space where you feel that the investors should avoid right now?
So I would say, I think the excitement around, say, the GST cuts are more likely to benefit, say, the auto sector. But if there are too many high expectations of an FMCG sector, I doubt it, because in general, people, the smaller FMCG elements like, biscuit packets and stuff like that, where you have 5 rupee or a 10 rupee or a 20 rupee packet, you're not going to see like a 5% reduction in that. Nobody's going to make it 9 rupees 50 paisa, both for visual appeal and also because they'll just increase the number of biscuits in the packet or they increase the grammage. The problem with that becomes that lower price should have driven demand, but you're not getting a lower price. So therefore, it's not likely to do that much for the FMCG companies. Same thing, I would say some of the metal spaces seem to be excited about what's happening out there. But in general, I would say they're more shorter term bets than longer term. In the longer term, I like domestic manufacturing, especially companies that are manufacturing for Indian industry and for the Indian consumer. While I feel right now, definitely that's a massive negative impact on textile companies, especially exporters. In the long term, I think they will be able to rework their supply to transition into domestic supply. But in the near term, I think that's the massive hit expected is in the textile export sector, and in some consume like shrimp exports and stuff like that, especially to the US. I think that is going to be massively negatively impacted. So companies around these areas in the short term are a no, but domestic manufacturing, even some of the consumption plays, if they were at more reasonable valuations, I would have jumped onto them. But hopefully they will become better. Those are the ones I think I like in the longer term. I would just avoid some of these tariff specific sectors until we hear from management.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on consumption and the overall outlook over there in terms of valuations as well. Let's also welcome on board Somil Mehta, Head of Alternate Research at Mirae Asset Sharekhan, joining us. And Somil, quite understandably, we're seeing that impact on IT, pharma, but it's PSU banks that continues to be in a lull. Metals have completely turned around from the shade of green that they were seeing yesterday. What is your take on some of the names from metals or PSU banks? Let's focus on metals first, because the reversal is something that we've seen compared to yesterday. It's almost a 2% cut on Nifty metal as well. What's your take when it comes to the overall metal index and select stocks that if you are liking anything from this sector?
Yeah, at this point of time, if you see metals, let's say Tata Steel, it's had an amazing run up in the last 4 to 5 months. Bottom of 125, and then it went to 174. Now that we are looking at a short-term correction, I think the entire correction, the entire rally should be retraced. So I'm be expecting at least a short-term correction till 200 daily exponential moving average, which is around 155 levels, and there around 150 155 levels, there's multiple support zones there. So I'll be expecting a short-term correction in Tata Steel, at least a minimum, and it would be a buying opportunity around 200 daily exponential moving average. So medium term still remains positive. In the short term, definitely expecting correction. Yeah, same with SAIL as well, same with Jindal Steel. I'm looking at Jindal Steel as well. It has just closed going below 20 daily exponential moving average, which is not a good sign for the stock, but it has had a very good run up in the last a few months, and I'll be expecting a small retracement till at least 1000 levels, so 980 levels. So yes, short-term correction is on the way, and we'll get better prices to buy these stocks.
Okay, that's the take on the metals counters. I'm just looking at the market breadth today. While, of course, the idea wherein the Supreme Court hearing has been deferred once again in the AJR dues case. There's Laurus Labs, which is down about 6.5%. HFCL is down 5.5%. Biocon, PG Electroplast. These are all names which are seeing red ticks come by. Deepak, while of course the concern is not really for generics, just wanted to understand your take for those who do have some patented drugs, the likes of a Biocon and Sun Pharma. What do you think is the resolution here? And if you hold those stocks, should you be selling?
Well, I think the simplest thing over here is that they want you to manufacture something in the US, and the wording is so vague that says, oh, if you can break ground before October 1st, and both these companies probably have somewhere land in the US. All they have to do is, find a way to make sure that ground is broken in those lands if it is undeveloped, and if it's developed, they already qualify for not having these tariffs. So they would definitely do something to address that part of their portfolio which is branded. But since at least in one of these companies' cases, there will be a significant generic part of the portfolio as well, it's just a reshuffle things around. I don't see this as a long-term challenge for them, though the challenge is not in this announcement. The challenge is in the fact that there are announcements, and tomorrow, while this may not affect them, something else will come, and there'll be another tweet from somewhere else which says more things are affected. So if you're from India, we'll charge you these tariffs, kind of things. Those are so because of that. I don't think it's meaningful to say just invest. But I mean, good companies with long-term solid cash flows. I think as long as the impact is not life-threatening for them, I would say they are necessary parts of that ecosystem, and they will not be. You'll have to trust them to kind of pass through those maneuvers, and then the prices will adjust. So you might want to consider lightening a position that is too heavy on these companies, but I don't think they're bad companies to own, and I think they'll figure their ways out. But don't expect the barrage of announcements to be for them. They will probably be more against them than anything else.
Oh, yeah, because given the fact that the branded exposure is not that high, the markets are not taking it that nicely on the back of all the factors that you just highlighted, Deepak. But thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking with us this afternoon.
So.
All right, but with this, viewers, let's also get you some of the BT, ST, or rather STBT ideas from both of our experts. And Saumil, you go first. Tell us which is the stock that you are tracking.
I have Indus Towers on a sell side, and Indus Towers looks negative to me, closing below 200 daily moving average and trading below 2040 daily moving average. Negative signs all over, lower top, lower bottom formation. So Indus Tower is a sell for me. Target would be around 318 and the stop loss would be around 357. The next call would be on KPIT Tech. KPIT Tech, similar situation, closing below 20 and 40 daily moving average, trading below 200 daily moving average, low top, low bottom formation. It was in the downtrend on the monthly charts, weekly charts. So overall weak stock. Targets would be around 1120 and stop loss would be around 1262.
Your list?
So I'll go with a couple of sell calls. The first one is a sell on Coforge. That's a stock which is looking weak on the charts, given a fresh breakdown on the swing support. So would look out for targets in the range of 1500, stop loss to be kept at 1562. And the second would be a sell on ICICI Bank. And for the first time, I think the stock has broken below its 200 moving average, at least over the last 6 to 8 months. So would expect this to be into a short-term downtrend further for ICICI Bank. Would look out for targets in the range of 1340, stop loss to be kept at 1374.
Okay, so that's a sell call coming in on ICICI Bank. On that note, we'll slip into a very short break and track the last 30 minutes of the market when we return.
Welcome back to Closing Trades right here on ET Now. So the markets continue to languish behind, and yes, of course, the breadth of the market is not looking that great. But one such stock that I see is seen to be inching higher is actually Reliance. Surprising to note that in this day as well, Reliance is now tick by tick is trying to make a comeback and maybe trying to lend some support to the market. So let's watch out for that. But with this, let me also welcome Vineet Bulanchkar on the show right now. Hi Vineet, very good afternoon, and not that great afternoon transpiring for the markets. What are you making of the market right now? Because this particular month and the upcoming month is going to be an interesting one. We will start with the RBI policy. Along with that, the earnings season will also kickstart. What are you making of the markets? How are they getting ready for all of it?
No, if you watch the previous, 45 days of trend, you'll see that the market has been yo-yoing to the tariffs. And every counter from the government has been met with positivity, while a tariff construct from the US has been beaten down. And the latest has been due to the pharma tariffs and the other kitchen cabinet, etc., tariffs that have been levied. So I think the market is more or less in a kind of a trading range. And, there's a limited hit that an economy can absorb. And with the H1B also looming large on, the valuations of IT stocks, I think, if we break 24,500, then we are, heading down more towards 24,200 sorts. So not a great way to end the month and call in the new, trading series.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on the outlook. This is Nifty's worst week on a week-to-days basis since February of this year. I just want to see what some of the indexes have done on a week-to-days basis. Of course, all of these indexes in the week gone by are in the red, with metals seeing the least cut, and that is also a 1% cut, which is the least cut coming in for metals. It's really been IT, an 8% downtick coming in. Realty is down 6% week to date. Pharma, auto, energy, all of them down anywhere between 3 to 5%. So it's really been an intensified week of selling off that we've seen on the street. Kunal, any reversal anywhere in the near term, any ray of optimism if you're spotting right now? Because given the kind of cuts that we're seeing across the spectrum and the broader end of the market, because you remember earlier, a couple of weeks ago, the trend would be that the market would close flat, but the broader end would try and hold on. And that has also completely reversed, if you could call it that.
Well, absolutely, yes, Nahi. The broad end of the market is reversing, and I think the evidence for that is clearly the mid cap and the small cap indices. So, not just on individual stocks, but then as a benchmark indices, when you see a break, below the previous key supports, and we are talking of supports. So, on a like-to-like comparison, for example, when the Nifty was at 22,000, 21,800 levels, that was a time when many of the mid caps and the small cap indices had made a fresh swing low as well. And now when the Nifty is up 2,000, 2,500 points higher than those support levels, the mid caps and the small caps are trying to retest the previous lows. So that itself tells you that this move in the last 5-7 days, or maybe in the last 1 month or so, has been more damaging towards the small caps and the mid caps rather than the large cap names. Now the mood question is that whether the markets would probably see any kind of a respite. I doubt so, because even if it happens for the next, say, 1 week or so, the selling pressure which has been originated this week could probably play a big overhang for the markets in the very near term. Now look at it this way: this month so far the FI numbers are almost 24,000, 24,500 crores on the negative side, and over the last 12 months we've seen historically that whenever the FI numbers have been down or have been negative by that kind of a margin, the Nifty has given a negative performance on a month till date basis. So far for this month, we are up 0.9% for the Nifty, and we have just about another couple of trading sessions to end this particular month. So which means that we could be looking at the index facing a little bit of more selling pressure. Wouldn't be surprised that over the next couple of days we actually even retest the 24,500 levels or go below that.
Right, so that's the take coming in on benchmark indices. But one of the other big stories that we have been tracking today was the Supreme Court resolution plan on JSW Steel for Bhushan Power and Steel that has been upheld, and they have rejected the objections raised by the ex-promoters and certain creditors. The court was hearing the appeals against the resolution plan after recalling the judgment delivered by two-judge bench earlier. But with this, the Supreme Court, what's the latest verdict coming in on that? Let me take it across to my colleague Prakash for more details.
Yeah, that's an important development coming in, as the Supreme Court has upheld JSW Steel's resolution plan for Bhushan Power and Steel Limited, a very significant development coming in, while rejecting the objections raised by ex-promoters and certain creators of BPSS. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed its faith in IBC framework and COC's wisdom. In fact, a bench led by Chief Justice of India has reheard the appeals against resolution plan, and after taking all factors into account, Supreme Court has finally, upheld JSW Steel's resolution plan for Bhushan Power and Steel Limited. A very crucial development coming in. That essentially means JSW Steel can retain the control of the company, which was acquired for approximately rupees 20,000 crore. At the same time, lenders will not have to face hit of rupees 34,000 crore. An appeal was filed before the Supreme Court after its 2nd May ruling of quashing, JSW Steel's resolution plan for Bhushan Power and Steel Limited, which put several question marks on overall IBC framework. Government of India was of the opinion that several factors were not taken into consideration, several aspects were completely ignored, and therefore an appeal was filed before the Supreme Court for rehearing. Finally, after taking all factors into account, Supreme Court has upheld JSW Steel's resolution plan for BPSL. It's a positive development for IBC framework as well, which is considered to be one of the biggest corporate governance reforms in independent India. Onus was on the government to restore investors' confidence. All the factors and aspects were put up before the Supreme Court. And finally, Supreme Court has upheld JSW Steel's resolution plan for BPSL.
More than it bringing relief to JSW, that its resolution plan has been affirmed by the Honorable Supreme Court. What it does is it brings a great amount of respite to the market, to the investor, and of course also to the government, because that judgment created so much of uncertainty around the IBC process, because a plan that had been approved 4 or 5 years ago and had been partly implemented was sought to be set aside on certain aspects which the review judgment has clearly held that was an incorrect view. So it's a remarkable judgment. It is restoring the confidence in the IBC, and it will go a long way in reaffirming the faith what is the blue chip reform since independence in the independent India. They've said that the COC should continue to function even during the implementation of the plan and or till the liquidation order is passed. Now, which means that they've expanded the role of the COC beyond just the stage when the plan is approved, but also have gone to the stage where they oversee the implementation of the plan, which is contemplated to be done by the monitoring committee earlier.
Okay, so that's a word coming in from experts on this entire JSW Steel verdict that we've heard in favor is something that the Supreme Court has ruled for JSW Steel, but that stock continues to be under slight pressure, and no surprise because that is the trend of the overall market. And take a look at the Nifty, a 1% cut, and we've stuck over there. There's been no improvement, nothing at all. Even in the last 10 minutes that we've seen, we're exactly there at the Nifty, 24,644, 650 thereabouts on the Nifty. On that note, we'll slip into a very short break and keep the conversation going about the trading day and the week that we've seen just on the other side.
In association with SBI, बेस्ट है सबको पता है.
वेल्थ कंपनी म्यूचुअल फंड का फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड जो मार्केट के अप्स एंड डाउन्स को नेविगेट करेगा, देगा पोटेंशियल फॉर बेटर ग्रोथ अपॉर्चुनिटीज. हरी, द एनएफएस सब्सक्रिप्शन पीरियड इज लिमिटेड.
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है. योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें.
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ. डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड में मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा. अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ. सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र.
वैल्यू फंड्स, इसमें ऐसा क्या है?
सोचिए सुपरमार्केट नहीं
तो फिर
स्टॉक मार्केट है, और रैक्स पे अलग अलग स्टॉक्स हैं. म्यूचुअल फंड्स ऐसे स्टॉक सिलेक्ट करते हैं जिनकी आज की वैल्यू उनके पोटेंशियल से कम है.
यानी स्टॉक्स जो डिस्काउंट पे है.
इन्वेस्टमेंट्स के लिए वैल्यू फंड्स में ऐसे स्टॉक्स चुने जाते हैं जिनकी कीमत आज कम है पर फ्यूचर में बढ़ सकती है. म्यूचुअल फंड्स निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है. योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेज ध्यानपूर्वक पढ़ें.
Java 42, the answer.
पता है हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस आपकी फैमिली के लिए कितना जरूरी है? इतना जरूरी है कि भारत सरकार ने इस पे जीएसटी पूरी तरह से हटाकर जीरो कर दिया है. पॉलिसी बाजार पर अब 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू. policybazaar.com.
Welcome back to Closing Trades right here on ET. Now you're catching this live from SBI Live Studios. And Vineet, I just wanted to have your take on select counters, specifically M&M as well as Eternal. The reason I ask this because off late in this market movement, these were the strong candidates. And today, what a U-turn that these counters are making. Do you believe that it's offering a good opportunity to buy the declines, or would you stay away given the run-up off late?
The Eternal has been more or less in a range, and just $20 down doesn't really, change the trend. It's just some profit taking, sentimentally driven. Story stays intact. As far as Mahindra is concerned, it has been buoyed up and it has moved up very sharply. I think that the trend will sustain. So both these stocks are, the alpha generators. They should continue to do well and outperform the market. I'm not saying that they will not go down. They can if the market dips any further, but they will relatively stem the tide. And when the market reverses henceforth, they will be the leaders then.
So that's the take coming in on Eternal, some of the quick commerce counters. So that is one space that's seeing a little bit of interest, lots of news flow happening over there as well. Vineet, let's talk about the pharma space because, of course, these fresh new tariffs is something that we've seen today, largely expected to not affect India so much because we are largely a generics exporting country. But give us your sense on the kind of momentum that you're seeing within domestic pharma. We've got lots of positive news over the course of the weekend in terms of new drug approvals and new launches coming in. What is your take on where the pharma sector could be headed, also factoring in these tariffs now?
So, what I believe is that the pharma valuations are not that cheap. Their margins could come under a little bit of pressure. Apart from that, we should be looking at all the CDMO stocks. They're coming off a bit. We've seen, Laurus Labs come off, DVs, and similar kind of stories. So those are the counters which we think will escape any kind of supply shocks. And so we remain constructive on this specific space within the pharma generic story.
The take coming in on the pharma space. But with this, let's also hear out from A. Vedish, former Vice President of GSK Pharma, who shared his take on how this can impact the Indian pharma space.
This is not something which was not expected. You know very well that this has been going on for some time. Even in the bad news, there is some good news, right? So it's only targeting branded or patented drugs. And out of around 8.73 billion last year India pharma exports, this won't be more than 5 to 10%. So the impact actually that we are talking about is for about 3 to 4 companies which are dependent on specialty drugs or patented drugs. So if I have to sum it up, it's a very specifically targeted business, but I don't think it's going to have a severe impact for the industry.
All right, not a severe impact for the industry, but the sentiment indeed is denting the pharma space right now. But Soumil, wanted to have your take on one of the top movers today, and that is L&T, one of the flag bearers when it comes to Nifty 50 gainers. But given the movement that even this stock has actually corrected from its highest point, do you believe it's good to book profits right now when it comes to L&T, or the move has just started? Because I believe that it's the third or the fourth time the stock is seen to be retesting its 3,700 odd levels.
For the short-term traders, yes, definitely book some profits. However, for a positional trader or a long-term investor, these are good levels to buy, in fact, and hold on to this stock for medium-term outlook, for a long-term outlook. I'll not be expecting the stock to go below 200 daily moving average, which is around 3,530. It will keep inching up, but 3,500 is the level, the worst-case scenario probably for L&T. I'll be very positive on this stock in the medium term and long term, and I'll be expecting targets closer to 3,900 levels and above.
So short-term traders can book profits, but the long-term traders and positional traders as well, this is a good opportunity when it comes to LNT. But Soman, one of the other counters is actually ITC. A little bit surprising to see that in this market, this counter is seeing an uptick of almost 1%. What do you make out of it? Because I believe that it's bouncing back exactly from its 300 or 400 odd levels, where in the past 6 months, it has taken the support 3 times.
Absolutely. ITC has multiple supports around 390 and 400 levels. So yes, it is bouncing back, but I'm not expecting too much out of ITC. I'm still expecting ITC to be range bound between 400 and 440. That's the price range. That's the broad range where ITC is trading for a very long time now. Anything above 420, 430, a close above that, when it sustains above that, I think that will be the right time to buy into the stock and target a much higher levels. But at this point of time, I'm not expecting too much, so avoid would be my suggestion.
All right, so that's the avoid coming in on ITC. But Vineet, I wanted to have your take on ITC, because ITC is not a pure FMCG company, because we just had Deepak earlier on the show and he was even flagging off that given the GST rate rationalization, it's not going to be the case that people go ahead and buy 4 packets of biscuits versus 2 earlier. But ITC is not just a staples company, but it also has a cigarette portfolio where getting off this habit is quite not easy. But what's your take on ITC? Are you finding any opportunity here?
So I think it's going to be more or less range bound because cigarettes volumes will pressure and they will not be able to pass on the annual increases because those are taken over by the GST price hikes. The excise duty hikes. And the FMCG volumes will see a kind of a good gain. So we'll see the margins for the FMCG business go up. So there I'm quite positive. So overall, it will be value accretive, but minimally so.